The diner was quiet that morning, the kind of silence that feels heavy and expectant, like the world is holding its breath. Sunlight filtered softly through the tall windows, catching the dust in the air and creating streaks of gold across the worn red leather booths. At one end of the long counter, 3 men sat in leather vests, their arms crossed, tattoos twisting down their biceps, faces hardened by years of road, sun, and storms of life. They were unmistakable, Hell's Angels, notorious and feared by most. But in that moment, their intimidating presence seemed almost fragile, as if they too were caught in the hush of this ordinary diner, waiting for something, or someone, to break it. And then she came. She was a little girl, barely 6, wearing a bright blue dress that looked almost too big for her tiny frame. Her brown hair bobbed softly with every step she took toward the counter, and her eyes, wide, innocent, and full of curiosity, locked onto the 3 men as though she were staring straight into a thunderstorm and not afraid at all. She reached the edge of the booth and pointed, a gesture simple, yet filled with bold confidence. "Hello, sir," she said, her voice small but unwavering. "My mother has a tattoo just like yours." Pause for a moment here. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of human connection, take a second to like this video, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Let's keep the magic of stories like these alive. The men looked at her, first with surprise, then with disbelief, and finally with something softer, something no one would ever expect to see on faces carved by decades of life on the road. The leader, a bald man with a trimmed gray beard, leaned closer, squinting at the girl. There was a quiet weight to her words, a truth that didn't need explanation. For a long, suspended moment, the diner's ambient hum seemed to fade entirely. Her mother had been a woman of quiet strength, someone who carried her own battles behind a smile, who had worn her love and her pain on her sleeve, literally. The tattoo was her mother's personal symbol of resilience, one that mirrored the insignia inked on the biker's arm. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was a bridge, connecting past and present, pain and understanding, strangers and family. The little girl, sensing the attention she had captured, pointed toward the food in front of the men. She was hungry, but more than that, she was brave. She had learned early that the world could be harsh and that courage was sometimes the only weapon a child could wield. And yet, her eyes reflected not fear, but hope. She reminded them of a world they had once believed in, a world outside of leather, engines, and endless nights on the road, a world that still had room for innocence, for laughter, and for second chances. As the minutes passed, the men softened. Their hands, usually steady on handlebars or fists, shook slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. Memories flooded in, of lost friends, of paths they had chosen, of love and mistakes left behind. The diner became a stage for something unspoken, something raw. It was a moment of reconnection, of humanity breaking through the walls they had built over decades. One of the men reached across the counter and gently touched the girl's small hand. He did not speak, words would have been inadequate. The gesture said it all. In that touch was respect, protection, and an acknowledgement of courage that transcended age. The girl smiled, a soft, knowing smile that suggested she understood more than most adults could. She had come not to judge or fear, but to recognize, to honor, and to remind them that the world still had room for goodness. Hours passed, yet no one seemed to notice. They talked quietly, sharing stories of their journeys, of love lost and found, of mistakes and redemption. The little girl listened, her presence bridging the chasm between a life of innocence and a life of experience hardened by the road. And in her simple declaration about her mother's tattoo, she had achieved something remarkable. She had opened the door to trust, to vulnerability, to connection. By the end of the morning, the diner no longer felt like a place for meals. It felt sacred, a testament to the quiet power of courage and kindness. The men left later, their motorcycles rumbling into the distance, but they carried something new with them, a reminder that even the hardest hearts could soften, and that sometimes, the smallest voices carry the greatest power. The little girl watched them go, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She had learned, in one unforgettable morning, that bravery does not always roar. Sometimes, it whispers through the simplest of gestures, the smallest of words. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Let others feel the power of kindness too. Before you leave, comment below with one moment from your own life where a simple act of courage or kindness changed everything. Your story might inspire someone else today.